All right, welcome to another special edition of the IDP Plus podcast. This week, we're talking linebacker tiers, and we've got edge included. And I just want to preference in this, these are the edge linebackers that generally get tossed in with the edge rushers who get tossed in with linebackers. So there's not going to be like a Nick Bosa, Max Crosby on this. It's going to be more of your, TJ Watts, the guys that depending on your league site like Yahoo, MFL, Sleeper, could be dropped into either the defensive end or the linebacker position group. So we want to add them in here in case that that matters to you, and so you can see like where we'll put a TJ Watt. One person, and we will probably talk about this, Danielle Hunter not included, but that might just be an age thing. So we'll get into all of that. And but first, let's talk about our hosts. Really quick, we've got Michael Sicoli, Johnny Freakin Fantasy. Johnny, give your handle, where people can find you, and where your content is.
So you can find me on X at Johnny Freakin F1. I signed on to the IDP guys in November, wrote in some articles. Now I'm moving into a podcast in the off season here. I'm doing a show with IDP tipster Gary. That's the IDP Plus Trends podcast, as well as here on the IDP Plus podcast, breaking down these dynasty rankings over the off season. And in the Trends podcast, we're talking about free agent, prospects, where they're going to go, and what that means for fantasy through a dynasty lens. So you can continue to follow me and watch my videos here in IDP Plus Trends, and get at me on Twitter.
Awesome. And Sicoli, I see that you're a fan of just drinking straight milk. So maybe talk a little bit about that, and then where people can find you and what kind of content you're putting out.
Is that a controversial take now? For those, obviously this is a recording, so you may not know when this recording. This is the morning for me. All right, I'm trying to get a breakfast in once in a while. I'm trying to be a big strong boy. Apparently, that's what I get told. Get some strong bones. Be sure to follow. You can follow me at Michael__Sicoli. I run the IDP Plus newsletter that we have. The link to follow and subscribe to that for free is in my my Twitter bio, as well as you can check out IDP guys, IDP Plus now, Twitter, and you can follow it via there through the link in the bio there. Free to do so. Getting your fantasy updates every single Wednesday morning right in your inbox.
Awesome. Yeah, and while you're doing all that, go to idpguys.org, become a subscriber to the site, get direct access to rankings, premium articles. We've got tools. One of the tools I use for this show is the weekly fantasy finishes tool, and that just gives me the information of where these players finish the season ranking for 2023, and then where in their position group were they the number 1, the number 15 for that week, going all the way through the season. So it's a great way to see who's the most efficient, how they're performing, and you can get that right now for $1 for the first month if you use the promo code MOCKDRAFT at checkout for a monthly subscription, and you get that for $1 and get a chance to see what all we have and what we're putting out, and the great content we have for IDP. So with that, let's get into our linebacker ones. So for the audience listeners, or the audio listeners, everyone's an audience that isn't on the screen right now. Number 1, Roquan Smith, Foyesade Oluokun, Micah Parsons, Bobby Okereke, TJ Watt, Nick Bolton, Quay Walker, Ernest Jones, Will Anderson, Jack Campbell, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Fred Walker. So my first question here is going to Johnny Freakin Fantasy. And it is, Bobby Wagner finished the year as the number 1 linebacker. Where is he? Why is he not in the top 12?
Well, it's a good question, and it depends. And I'm thankful you're preluding it with this question. And that's one thing I wanted to say with these linebackers is, this is a dynasty perspective. So a lot of people kind of gets maybe scurried away by the fact that Bobby Wagner's in his mid-30s. He's 33 years old now. Of course, led the league in tackles. Yeah, I mean, if it depends on what your mindset is. If you're looking for somebody for a 1 year, 2 year who's going to get it done, Bobby Wagner's your guy. He could be on this list, and in my opinion, 1 or 2 solid years of we know what we're getting, and that's somebody who is going to be right up there leading the league in tackles. That's well respected. So yeah, definitely could be on this list, and depends on your dynasty mindset. If you're looking to break the bank and find a young guy like the Jack Campbells, the Ernest Jones, Terrell Bernards, I could understand that mindset. But if you're really looking to, make sure you don't make a missed pick, I think Bobby Wagner's a great value and somebody who's, should be at the top of the leaderboards for the next year or two to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael, are we sleeping on Bobby Wagner for Dynasty? Is he having resurgence? What's going on there?
It's a very common thing in Dynasty for us just to overreact to age, right? And sure, there is the risk that Bobby Wagner only plays one more year of football. There's the risk that he retires next month, right? I mean that those are all in play for someone who's done it all in his career and has a very good chance at wearing a gold jacket when he retires. So it's a tough thing to decide. But you have to play. I echo what Johnny said. You play Dynasty in 1 to 2 to at most 3 year windows. And if you can get 1 to 2 top 5 seasons out of a player, he's worth taking pretty high. And with Bobby Wagner, with Mike McDonald in Seattle now, the old Ravens defensive coordinator, we know the wonders that he worked with Roquan Smith for fantasy and with Patrick Queen for fantasy. So I have all the faith in the world that Bobby Wagner is going to once again be a top 5 tackler next season. And if your league supports that type of scoring, he's going to be a great asset. And, because of his age, you can get him later in dynasty drafts and trades.
Yeah. So, okay, so no Bobby Wagner at 1, but we do have Roquan Smith there at 1. And just to preference, I'm looking at tackle premium scoring format right now, so that is going to sway some of these numbers. And maybe I should have switched it to balanced or big play. But if you go to the weekly fantasy finishes tool on idpguys.org, you can change those scoring formats based off of your personal league. But Roquan Smith at number 1 for Dynasty in tackle premium is number 8 in 2023, and he had 3 top 10 finishes and 3 outside the top 50. So going back to you, Michael, does he deserve being number 1?
Yeah, I think he's proven it. And it's going to be very interesting to dive into Baltimore this offseason because that entire defensive room pretty much got separated. Mike McDonald is now in Seattle. Anthony Weaver is now the new defensive coordinator in Miami. The defensive back coach, who I'm blanking on the name, I forget where he went, but he's gone as well. There are so many moving pieces in Baltimore right now that we do have the worries, including Patrick Queen, his running mate, who is a free agent now. Who knows if he comes back? But Roquan Smith is the constant. This is somebody that has continually shown to us that he is going to pull through for fantasy, and they traded high value for him. He's delivered on the field. They've given him the contract. There's no reason to expect anything but great things for Roquan Smith going forward. He's just a great player. And you're flipping coins between him and Foy at 1. You can go either way. Foy's been fantastic, so it doesn't make a difference to me either way which one you go with. But Roquan's definitely deserving.
Yeah, absolutely. So over to you, Johnny, on this, and I'm just looking through the 2022 and Roquan. So one thing to preface, because of the trade Roquan Smith had, it's actually kind of broken our tool. So I'm going to have to get back to the developers on that to see where he actually landed in 2022. But it looks like he didn't have that bad of a year, and switching teams was all right. And so, with him on the Ravens, like, do you see him kind of maintaining that number 1 position going into 2024?
Yeah, I definitely do. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's 26 years old, and it's not like a 26 and he just broke out and it's a risky pick. This is somebody who's been doing it now. Premier linebacker in the league. So Roquan Smith definitely deserved to be number one. 150 tackles in the last 3 years, and that's a point I want to make. Is with me, my mindset in this dynasty, especially when we look at linebackers, you could try to get away with like a Hassan Reddick or Josh Allen from Jacksonville, somebody who's going to get you like 15 to 20 sacks. Let's say he gets 20 sacks. That's higher than Josh Allen, I believe, had 17 and a half this year. But, you're looking at unless you're getting like 6 or 7 points for a sack, the safest thing to do is look at these bankable tackles. We're talking about Roquan Smith, 150 tackles over the last 3 years. That's incredible. Are you going to you're going to put your money on something that happens 150 times or 17 times, right? So to me, Roquan Smith, and one caveat about him is maybe, Patrick Queen, maybe he gets a payday elsewhere. They have a lot of guys to re-sign in Baltimore. But Roquan Smith is somebody who not only does it in the tackles. He looking at last year, his first year there, he had 4.5 sacks. This year was down. He had only 1.5. Last year in 2022, he had 11 tackles for loss. This year was a little bit down with 5, but still, for a guy who's going to give me over 150 tackles, that's bankable. He's going to make some plays. He's going to force some fumbles, make tackles behind the line. So, yeah, he does it all. He breaks the mold. So no matter what your scoring is, Roquan Smith is definitely an LB1. And if we're talking tackle premium, he's a shoe-in at number 1 to me.
Nice. I like that. So shifting gears a little bit and talking about that edge role that we kind of mentioned at the beginning, and speaking about TJ Watt, he's at number 5 here. But this year for tackle premium, he was number 15 with 3 performances outside the top 100. Having him, the left, not having Danielle Hunter on this list. What are your thoughts when it comes to these edge rushers when they're included as a linebacker? Is TJ Watt just kind of in a league of his own and that's why he's at number 5? Or do you kind of devalue those players when it's kind of in the guise of a linebacker?
It's a very interesting situation with exactly what you just laid out, because TJ Watt has been the outlier, and some of those guys are like the Michael Parsons of the world. They have been outliers to, you can play them as linebackers and mostly be happy with it. But when you really factor in your scoring system, tackle premium is not where these edge rushing guys are going to thrive. You have guys that are going to be going 2-3 rounds after these guys that are going to be way more valuable just because of the usage is entirely different. So I'm perfectly fine taking them this high if I can play them as defensive ends. If I have to play them as linebackers, that's when it gets a little bit more tricky. That's when I have to consider, maybe I don't want to buy the name here because I can get a usage-based Christian Harris or pick up the Denzel Perryman of that year, the Cody Barton of that year, and fill the gap in later, as opposed to paying for someone that is a great player, but he's not being utilized to his fullest as a linebacker for fantasy. It's like the Falcons using Kyle Pitts as an inline tight end. It's just not what he's doing best for our fantasy community. So it's got its pros and its cons. It's something you want to definitely combine that splash nature that he has with someone, a few tackle guys that are a lot more stable, like an Ernest Jones, a Foy, but at that point you'd be paying a lot for your IDPs. Mm-hmm. So it's got its ups and its downs. I hope I laid it out there kind of well, but we'll see. We'll see what Johnny thinks.
Yeah, Johnny. You're a guy that doesn't like to buy in just on name value only. What's your thoughts here? Are you, just kind of waiting and getting those, more lunch pail kind of guys later on, or do you want to buy up a TJ Watt or a Micah Parsons?
So I think it goes hand in hand with what your scoring is, what your layout is. If we're talking a shallow league where you have like 1 or 2 linebackers and 1 or 2 defensive ends, maybe you take TJ Watt for your defensive end. But if we're talking shallow leagues, I just don't prefer, the price tag here at number 5 to take him and look at a position that you're looking, mostly for tackles. Over the last 2 years, there was a guy named Max Crosby, right, who had over 80 tackles and 10 sacks. And to me, that's an outlier. Like I can buy into that. And no discredit to TJ Watt. You know, he's an electric player. And if we're talking defensive ends, he's definitely in my top 5. But when we talk linebackers, you know, he's not somebody who's going to get you over 80 tackles and 10 sacks. And no discredit to his name, like I said. But yeah, I'm you know, when we talk about 2022, things we didn't know, we got guys like Terrell Bernard, you know, guys that even Cody Barton, like Mike said, you know, a lot of people wrote these guys off or didn't really, you know, have them in their rankings, but things change from year to year. So to me, you know, the linebacker position, I know my stuff. If you're somebody who knows your defensive IDP, you know your knowledge, then you wait, because Christian Harris, another good name Mike mentioned, that guy, if you can get him later, to me, like that's less draft value you have to put in. Now, once again, if we're talking defensive ends and you need to draft one, sure, TJ Watt's in that absolutely top 5 value. And if it's sack heavy scoring, yeah, TJ Watt does get a boost there. But to me, you know, I'm playing it safe with my tackles, and TJ Watt is as good of a player as he is. He's not going to, you know, offer you over 100 tackles. And when we're talking top 5 linebackers off the board, they have to do that for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really depends on also for me personally who I'm playing with. If I'm in a league with some people that might be, you know, a work league or a family league where, you know, I'm not necessarily fighting for, you know, the waiver wire and stuff. Yeah, I'll wait, or, you know, get someone later on that that they're not looking at, and let those top names go. But if I'm in a like an expert league and I know that it's going to be rough, you know, I might personally pay up just so that I don't have to worry about that position. But you know, it's everyone's got their strengths, and you got to know your scoring system and the league. But so before moving on to the next slide here, I just want to stop and take a moment and, you know, just recommend, you know, go to the fantasyfootballexpo.com, purchase your ticket, and come and see us in Canton, Ohio in August, from the 9th through the 11th, and get a chance to talk to us directly about who's your LB1. Are you taking TJ Watt that high? And you know, get to interact and speak with us directly in person. We'll have a booth there, as well as being part of the draft night out. We're bringing IDP to draft night out, which is going to be an awesome event this year. But you know, both Michael, you've been there before. Johnny, this is going to be your first time. Johnny, what are you looking forward to most at this event?
Man, I'll tell you what, I'm looking forward to networking and you know, me, I'm a big personality. I like talking to people. I like learning through stories more than I like to, you know, read. So I like talking, you know, and so that's what I'm looking forward to, is meeting up with a bunch of guys that I haven't met. I've seen on Twitter, and I know this IDP community is growing, but it's still not huge, you know, so I think I came at a good time to IDP Plus, and I'm, you know, excited to work with guys like Mike and yourself, and you know, Gary and whoever I do these podcasts with, but take that one step forward and go ahead, put myself on the map, and meet some other people who do things really well, and hopefully collaborate from there and grow my network and theirs.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing to note is, you know, while there's a lot of partying that happens during this weekend, there is a lot of learning to be had. And, you know, this year they're adding in on Saturday, sports betting Saturday, with a ton of speakers and different events and exhibitioners that will be talking about sports betting as well as the fantasy football on Sunday. Michael, when you went there, I know that you went to a bunch of different events like these. What was your takeaway from the expo and everything that happens that whole weekend?
Sure. One of my more favorite panels I attend to was the DFS one. I got to talk to Graham Barfield, as well as a few other people out there in the industry, and it's such a welcoming community. You know, it may not appear that from far, but once you get there in person, it's really all everyone's trying to help each other, and that really makes the learning process all the more fun. And that's what fantasy football is. It's fun. So I think you really get a connection with everyone in the industry more than you ever could anywhere else than you could do at the expo. It's really a great experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And if just learning isn't your thing, yeah, there's a lot of partying, and you get the opportunity to win a Trophy Smack belt for the beer pong tournament, like I did last year. And Trophy Smack's a great sponsor of ours, but also they are there, so you get to talk to Matt Walsh, Kelly Singh, and all of the great guys that put out great content for them, and also build these awesome belts and trophies. So go to thefantasyfootballexpo.com, buy your ticket, $75 right now, limited time for a VIP weekend pass. And that gets you into all of the events, gets you all of the shirt, the swag bag, all of the stuff. And come see us in Canton this summer. And let's go on to the next slide here. We're talking 13 to 24. These are your linebacker twos. So for audio listeners, we've got at number 13 Zaire Franklin, Tremaine Edmonds, Patrick Queen, TJ Edwards, a misspelled Jalen Phillips, Hassan Reddick, Logan Wilson, Devin Lloyd, Terrell Bernard, JOK only because of limited space and pronunciation, and CJ Mosley, Jordan Brooks. So my question here goes to Michael, because Jordan Brooks got you in a little bit of hot water recently, calling him a bust. Do you think he bounces back, and what's your response to that blowback from Twitter?
Well, let me clarify, all right? This is it's not an insult to Jordan Brooks. And the reason I called him a bust is because he didn't deliver for fantasy, and that's why. Now, the reason people pushed back, and rightfully so, was because expectations, right? He was coming off the torn ACL. We were shocked he was even ready for week 1, and yet he was. So people factor that in, and, they had lower expectations. But my point in bringing him up was that he had an amazing stretch of games from week 8 to, it was either 7 to 9 or 8 to 10 off the top of my head, and he was fantastic. Top 10 option each of those weeks. And then he crushed you after. He buried you. And not only that, because honestly, we got to move on, right? We got to see what the future is. And we don't know the future because he did not have his 5th-year option picked up last year, and he is a free agent coming up. So I have so many question marks about Jordan Brooks, of somebody that has been good at times and terrible at times, has been okay, has been on the field, now has an injury history. Where is Jordan Brooks playing football next year? Now, if he returns to Seattle, all in. I'm all for it. A year removed from the ACL with a very 2 linebacker friendly system with Mike McDonald. If Jordan Brooks is a Seahawk next year, good. But right now he's a free agent, and I don't know where he's going to play football, and that is a big, big, big fear of mine. Especially Patrick Queen's a free agent too. Maybe Patrick Queen rolls on down to Seattle, reunites with Mike McDonald. Who knows? So I have my concerns for sure for Jordan Brooks.
Gotcha. All right, Johnny, what do you think? Jordan Brooks, does he bounce back? Is he worthy of that 24 slot? And do you move any of these other linebackers around?
So first with Brooks, I was high on him, always have been. This is somebody who, if we rewind to a year ago today, we're probably putting him in top 10, maybe even top 8, linebacker rankings due to the age and production. He led the league in tackles a few years ago. Still only 26 years old. He's young. He's definitely in the prime of his career, getting to it, and that's crazy to say because how much production he's provided the first couple years. I like Jordan Brooks a lot. He did have a down year. And Mike mentioned that he had a rough, especially closing out the year. He rubbed us the wrong way at the wrong time in playoffs, but he did have 6 games this year over 10 tackles. So, I'm kind of willing to forgive for this year. And Jordan Brooks, he is a free agent. One thing I do like about the situation is the coach that came there. Was it McDaniel? Is that it, Mike? McDaniel? What's the name? McDaniel.
McDonald. You're very close.
McDonald.
Mike McDonald.
I think that helps Jordan Brooks. Maybe he doesn't. We saw him get a good amount of sacks. Maybe that's a role. It's something that's kind of like that was not really his bread and butter, but something that we weren't complaining about. We saw some sacks, but maybe he kind of with the new coaching, kind of falls back, works on his pass coverage, and becomes a better player overall. Maybe he's not rushing the quarterback as much, and that maybe benefits him in his tackle department. So Jordan Brooks, I still like him a lot. If we're talking about upcoming, redraft especially, but Dynasty too, if you can get him here at 24, some of these older guys above like CJ Mosley, maybe, if we're talking about over 30 linebackers, and we haven't said Bobby Wagner yet, I think he definitely should be on this list at this point. But yeah, CJ Mosley, maybe someone who I'd move down due to age, but still, for 1 or 2 years can get it done. Devin Lloyd, there's a little bit of uncertainty there with me, with as much as he's a good 1-2 punch to Foye, he's still young. If he takes a step back, this is still a high, price tag to pay, but I still see a lot of upside with Devin Lloyd. Logan Wilson had a nice year. We're used to seeing him getting his tackles. He also got interceptions. He's always, has a knack for the ball, has a nose for the ball. So I like him a lot. Hassan Reddick's probably somebody who I'm moving down here, close to 30 years old. He did have 11 sacks this year, but tackles were down, and maybe he's kind of, maybe making a role player at this point. Who knows what they do in Philly? They need linebackers there, so things might shake up in Philadelphia. TJ Edwards, man, I like TJ Edwards a lot. I think I'd even put him higher than Tremaine Edmonds. You can make a case for him to be a top 10, top 12 linebacker. And Zaire Franklin, I just want to mention too. Zaire Franklin, as good as he is, if everything stays the same with him, he's not a free agent this year, but he will be next year. He's somebody who, I hope he stays. It just like Jordan Brooks. I hope they both stay because they're in a fruitful, they're in a comfortable spot, fruitful for IDP. And I just don't want to see Zaire Franklin go somewhere else because it scares me. He does get a little bit nicked in PFFs. People, are able to pick the flaws out of his game, shows up in the tackle department. But man, I hope him and Brooks really stay because especially Zaire Franklin, if he goes somewhere else, I don't know that he'll be the same type of player he's been in Indy. But to go back to your question, I'm still high on Jordan Brooks. I hope he resigns, and I think he gets a fire under him and has a great next year, 2024, and maybe earns a big payday elsewhere or resigns with Seattle at that point. But I think at most, and maybe that's the best thing that can happen is he had a down year. They re-sign him for a 1-year prove-it deal, and I think he proves it at that point. I like Jordan Brooks.
Nice. So a little look behind the scenes here. We record this. It's Super Bowl Sunday, and we're going to release this and the quarterback tiers over the next 2 weeks. But Michael, you just mentioned to me in our side chat that there's a little bit of news, and we want to touch on that, even though by the time this comes out, it will technically be old. But we want to be able to still make sure this content is relevant. So Michael, if you want to break that news here, and then how does that affect the tiers, the rankings that we see?
Sure. And it goes right along with what Johnny was saying, because Hassan Reddick coming out here, I believe was from Adam Schefter, about Hassan Reddick and the Eagles have mutually agreed to begin trade discussions of him leaving Philly and so forth. So we had enough concern. Johnny laid it out very well of all the concerns we have with Hassan Reddick of, okay year, but the tackles weren't there. And we don't know where he's going to be playing football now next year. And that is concerning, especially for someone who, is a little bit up there in age. And we could see a Zadarius Smith type of role coming up here. And that's not ideal for fantasy. So I think it is going to be a little bit streaky. I think Reddick is going to be falling down ranks and down dynasty stock boards over the next few months. And that's something to worry about. And the other name I want to bring up as well, there's a couple here. Terrell Bernard had a terrific breakout season with Buffalo. I had question marks of who it would be. I was hoping Dorian Williams might take a role, but Terrell Bernard was sensational this year. And Matt Milano was lost early on. It put even more on Bernard to take the green dot over, and he did it and then some. And they missed him so badly in that playoff loss that they had, that he was not a part of, and they missed him. They really, really did. So I think Terrell Bernard could be a lot higher on this as well. I wouldn't be surprised if he's easily a tier 1 option this time next year when we're looking at it. So that's someone I want to point out, as well as JOK. Now, that's somebody that had over 20 TFLs this year. He was sensational, really, really good. And Jim Schwartz, the defense coordinator, acknowledged that. He acknowledged that he wasn't playing him enough early in the year. And we saw that ramp up over the back half. We saw the tackles rise. And I could easily see JOK having a career year in 2024 under Jim Schwartz, just building on a really terrific season from 2023. And after a long time of being disappointed with Browns linebackers, we might actually have a more stable option in Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. We can pronounce his name, Nate.
There you
Boom.
go. There you go. Good. I'm glad we brought out the full name for JOK. He deserves a little respect. So let's roll on into our last slide. This is our linebacker threes. Starting at number 25, Alex Singleton, Bobby Wagner, Nakobe Dean, Dre Greenlaw, Devin White, Josh Allen, the defensive end linebacker, Jamin Davis, Aziz Al-Shaair, Caden Ellis, Quincy Williams, Pete Warner, and Carl Granderson. So my question here, and it's going to Johnny first, is Caden Ellis at 33. He had 3 top 15 finishes this year. Do you think this is low, or is this one of those guys that you are targeting because he doesn't have that name value?
Man, that's a tough question with Caden Ellis. I mean, they had Troy Anderson who was out there, and regardless, I mean, Caden Ellis had a great year last year, but man, I mean, it doesn't matter who they put in there that those 2 inside backer positions. Caden Ellis, he's had a great year. They also had Nate Landman when Troy Anderson got hurt, so it's fruitful there down in Atlanta. And I do like Caden Ellis. This is somebody who is a kind of an asterisk next to their name for me, because I'm somebody who chases the tackles first and foremost. And Caden Ellis, he does a nice job of blending tackles and sacks. He is a good rusher, edge rusher, so pass rusher, and I do see value in that. And to me, I'm probably not going to draft him. I'll take a guy like Aziz Al-Shaair, Quincy Williams. There's a case for those guys to be made higher. But Caden Ellis, he has to get those sacks, and he has to also, not hurt you in tackles. I'm not sure if that's what we've seen the last 2 years. I'm not sure that that's going to be forever. I think this guy's 28 years old. You could make an argument he's in the prime of his career, but to me, I don't think this might be the ceiling for him. I don't think it gets much better. To me, I'll take a guy like Aziz Al-Shaair, Quincy Williams, even Alex Singleton. Alex Singleton's another guy who's older. Maybe I think he's 30 years old, but is a great hitter, great tackler there in Denver. And hopefully, I think maybe opportunities might arise for him. I don't know if Josie Jewell comes back there. So Alex Singleton, another outlier, like one of those 30-plus guys. But if you're really banking on 1 or 2 years, he's a great pick there. And Quincy Williams, somebody who, kind of really grew into the player he is today. A lot of people are saying, Quincy Williams, he was a bad tackler, bad player the first couple years in Jacksonville, but man, he's turned it around a lot. So when we're talking about these guys, Quincy Williams and Aziz Al-Shaair, even Alex Singleton, I'll take them over a Caden Ellis. But Caden Ellis, especially, you got to watch your scoring on this one. If you're a sack heavy scoring and you have Caden Ellis as a linebacker, you get a little boost there. But if you're chasing tackles, I don't think Caden Ellis is like one of the, guy you have to get.
Gotcha. All right. Over to you, Michael. Looking at Caden Ellis or any of these other guys, who are you targeting as the not names that could, kind of be more of a role player in 2024?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think Johnny touched on those guys that can make the jump fairly well, and the Caden Ellis, I was a big fan of him. Now he loses it. Ryan Nielsen, his defensive coordinator, who he had with him in New Orleans. That's not the continuity break you want to see. So I'm a little bit worried there. A little bit surprised to see Quincy Williams as low as he is. Like Johnny said, had a fantastic season. Really was sensational with the Jets this year. Although he slowed down a little bit in the back half, but I associate that with his injury that he was dealing with. But the 2 names that are standing out to me, I'm actually going to go the other way with and say you couldn't pay me to have them on the roster, and that's Devin White and Jamin Davis. So Devin White hurts my soul, and not just because he was a top 5 dynasty linebacker when he was coming out and after that sensational rookie year, but he hasn't been good. He got benched. He wasn't. We have so many question marks with Devin White that I don't know where he's playing football next year. I don't know if he's good enough to stay on the field. I don't know who's taking a chance on the diva-like personality at linebacker who wanted to get paid before the year, big bucks despite not doing anything, and then proceeds to do nothing. There are concerns. There are concerns with Devin White. He's certainly out of Tampa Bay, in my opinion, with Yaya Diaby being sensational, and that's another name that we could have seen in this tier 3 here. And Jamin Davis, I mean, is he on Washington next year? I mean, this is somebody that has yet to really tap into that potential that we saw. We saw some bursts of it this year. We saw some signs of a turnaround, and then he got hurt. And you just have to wonder of where he fits in this Washington system with a new regime and a new owner. And does Jamin Davis fit in? Because I tend to think he doesn't. So the two names there that I just can't get behind. Carl Granderson as well. I love Carl Granderson. And I'm perfectly fine to have him here. Some concerns, though, just because his tackle numbers as a defensive end were otherworldly. They were so high that you have to just point at regression and say that those will come down a little bit, which means his TFLs, his pass defenses, his sacks, those all have to make up for it. And that's a tough bet to make. But I do love Carl Granderson as a talent, and I hope he keeps building on it.
Awesome. Well, guys, we've completed the first video where I have not talked about the Detroit Lions at all. So, we have another opportunity of that next week when we go into running back tiers. And, I've got a couple names there that I might be interested in and really, I don't know, gushing about. But make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, the IDP Plus Network YouTube. We've got a ton of great shows coming out. We've got the IDP Plus podcast, IDP Plus Trends, the mailbag show. So you can send your questions or your complaints to mailbag@idpguys.org. Those guys will, answer them or read them on that show. That is every Tuesday at 2 p.m. a live stream. So also get in there and ask your questions directly to them. So like I said, subscribe to the network, hit the little bell symbol so that you get notified when a new video comes out. We have more than daily. We have like almost twice a day a new video coming out, and then a bunch of shorts. So ton of great content this off season, and you're not going to want to miss it. So as we wrap up here, let's just I'm going to throw it to Michael to kind of say, where people can find you to follow you and what kind of content you're putting out.
Yeah. No, again, be sure to follow me at Michael__Sicoli on Twitter. That's where I pretty much live. And of course, the big thing I want to push on people is to follow at IDP Guys. Currently, that is the handle as of right now. And eventually will be at IDP_plus. Because that's obviously where we are now at IDP Plus. And I'm all excited for that because that's really where you see our polls that I put out there about IDP, what we referenced before about Jordan Brooks. We post our articles. It's a great way to stay in touch with what's happening here at IDP Plus and within the IDP community. So be sure to follow at IDP Guys on Twitter right now. And if you want to shoot me a follow as well at Michael__Sicoli, I'd welcome it too.
There we go. Johnny Freakin Fantasy. Bring it home, buddy.
So you can find me on X at Johnny Freakin F1. Continue to watch these IDP Plus podcast shows, during the off season. Also, if you haven't checked out my IDP Plus Trends podcast with the IDP tipster Gary, I'm hopefully going to keep pumping out videos here in the off season, especially through a dynasty perspective. A lot of guys are sleeping right now, but this is the time to make your money. This is the time to get ahead of your leagues, especially when we're talking dynasty. And I'm sure you have a lot of questions. This is a good list, and any good list is open to interpretation. So keep in touch and see us on our next video when we break down the running backs, and keep rocking with us. We're going to be here all off season for you. So thank you for listening, and thanks for being on with you guys.
All righty. And if you want to follow me, I'm at Nate Cheat on Twitter or X, or I've heard it also called Twix. I kind of like Twix. And if you're interested in,
that's a candy bar, Nate. That's a candy bar.
Hey, I like chocolate and caramel and nougat,
so too.
It works. So if you're interested in Detroit Lions tweets, I tweet about content creation and websites that I design. Go over there on X and follow me at Nate Cheat. But with that, we will see you next week, and you'll see plenty of our faces on other shows on the IDP Plus network. With that, talk to you guys later.
Thank you for watching this IDP Guys video. If you like this content and you want more fantasy football content, click here. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos to help you master your IDP league, click here to subscribe.